What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of Love and Marriage Huntsville Season 6, Episode 24, Roger That. So the episode starts off with Nell and Chris Fletcher. They're out having a good time. I guess they're having like a date night at this bar slash lounge type place. It wasn't black. I don't think it was black. So they're dancing on the dance floor. They're having a really good time. And then when they sit down, they start talking about Martell and how Martell is forcing his friends to choose between him and Melody. So Nell Fletcher tells her husband how Martell came to the house to drop off a couple of bottles of wine, and she was telling him about the name change ceremony that Melody was having and how she was planning on attending. And Martell was telling her that, if you go to that name changing ceremony, then you're no friend of mine or whatever. And then Chris also had his story to tell about how Martell told him as well that he had to choose between him or Melody. Well, side note, the whole thing about choosing friends is very elementary. It's very immature. Adults don't have to choose friends. You are friends with whoever you want to be friends with. And you can be friends with both people who are no longer married. I don't understand this whole thing of choosing friendships. If one of them has an event, attend it. If you're that person's friend, if the other one has an event, attend that as well. I don't see why people have to choose friends because it's very, very, very elementary. So then she tells her husband how Martell kind of flipped out on her because she was going to go to the name changing ceremony. And so Chris Fletcher was like, am I going to have to, have a conversation with him? Yes, Nell wants you to have a conversation with him. And I felt like, Martell, he did kind of come off a little bit too strong with Nell because he did get a little bit out of pocket. He raised his voice. He was very animated. And that's not how you talk to, a lady, a woman, a female, whatever you want to call it. So I just feel like, I feel like Nell is so tickled to be a part of the show. I think Nell, I think she wanted to be a part of this show for a very, very long time. And now that it seems like Carlos King is incorporating more of the Fletchers into every episode, I think Nell is just living her best life right now. We're seeing more of the Fletchers and less of the Whitlocks, which is fine with me because it seems like Lewis just doesn't have time for the show. And I don't want Tiffany without Lewis. So if Lewis just doesn't have time for the show because of his new career as a baseball coach, then maybe it's time to write out the Whitlows because I don't really know what Tiffany's is given or what she's bringing. I don't know. We'll get to that later. Well, no, we'll get to it now. Speaking of Tiffany. So she meets up with Stormy at a gift shop because I think she wants to buy thank you gifts for her, whatever it was that she had for her baby. So Stormy tells Tiffany that she saw the Carlos King interview that Tiffany did, and she said that Tiffany came off very, very snobby. The way she was acting like she was above Kiki and that, Kiki is not good enough to hang out with her, and she's also not good enough to hang out with anybody else on the show. And so Tiffany was like, she says, well, I don't associate myself with people like that, people who want to throw drinks at their cousins. And I'm pretty sure she was also implying, people who get caught shoplifting at Home Depot. So Tiffany was like, she kind of was like, keeping that same energy, like, yeah, I don't really want to associate with people like that. The people that I want to surround myself with are people who are going places and doing things. And it doesn't seem like Kiki is about that. So Tiffany thinks that, she said, Tiffany says in her confessional, she goes, well, I'm just saying what everybody else is thinking. I don't know. I don't know about that because you think that everybody else has a problem with Kiki and not everybody else does. The person who has the biggest problem with Kiki is Letitia. That's the one that really is, having issues with her. I don't think anybody else is having any kind of like personal problem with Kiki other than Letitia. And Tiffany, you want to put yourself in the mix, so I guess, you as well. But you want to create drama that's really not there between you and Kiki. So Stormy says that between the back and forth, between Tiffany and Kiki's back and forth, Tiffany's the one that is throwing the most shade. shade. And Tiffany was really shocked about that. Like, the way that, why would you say that? And also Tiffany was like, I'm surprised that Stormy thinks that I can be a shady person. And she, she was like, I can be very shady. I have that in me to be that way, but she doesn't think that she's doing more than Kiki. So Stormy finally confronts Tiffany about what she had said about Kiki moving to another school district to help out her son with his athletics. And she also confronted Tiffany about Tiffany saying that Stormy's products were toxic and that she doesn't use products that have those type of ingredients in them. Well, Tiffany denied saying both. She's like, well, I didn't say anything about, Kiki moving. I didn't say anything about that. That's what she claims. Then she also said, as far as me saying something negative about your products, that's also hogwash, because I'm almost done with the products that you gave me. I'm done with 2 bottles and halfway through another bottle. And of course I use your products, and I've never said anything negative. I didn't say that your ingredients were toxic or that I don't use them. I've never said that. So she denied it all. So I don't know. This information came from Kiki, so I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if Tiffany's lying or if Kiki's lying. So Stormy recommends that Tiffany and Kiki should have a conversation. They need to have a sit down. They need to get to the bottom of their problems and just try to squash the beef and move forward. And Tiffany says that she is down with having a meeting with Kiki, and she's even okay with Stormy mediating that meeting. So we'll see what happens when that takes place. Moving on to Melody. So we're finally at her name changing ceremony. Now, one thing about Melody is over the top. Okay, she is definitely over the top because she really wants to stick it to Martell that she don't give a damn about the whole name. She's going back to her maiden name. He can take that whole name and he can shove it. So she has her name changing ceremony, which is very much like a wedding, even though Fletcher had said that the invitations were like a wedding invitation. And so it starts off with her walking down the aisle, right? It's all held outside, but there's like a pathway that leads to the altar, basically. So she's walking down this pathway that leads to this altar where there's a minister waiting at the altar. The minister says whatever he says. He says a prayer. After that, she reads her vows. Okay, she reads her own vows to herself about the meaning of her changing her name and starting her life over, a brand new chapter, etc. Her mother stands up there with her. Her mother reads vows as well about, the meaning of the larger name, and this is what the ancestors gave you, and you're taking your name back, etc., etc. And then she reads the court order in front of everybody. So then she reads the court order. So she was putting 20 on 10, but that's how Melody is, and she understands reality TV, and this is, the stuff that happens. I mean, who's gonna be interested in her name change if all she did was just, stay in her living room, open up the court order, oh, my name got changed, and then we move on to the next scene. That's not how reality TV works. So she was giving the people what they wanted, I guess. So the only friends from the show that came were the Fletchers, and I was like, where's Kimmy and Maurice and who else could have come? Kiki wasn't there either. I was like, what happened to the other people? Why was it just the Fletchers of all people? And I understand that the Fletchers are close friends with the Holts, but still, I was like, where's everybody else? But I don't know what happened. So the Fletchers are there, and at some point Nell pulls Melody to the side, and Melody says in her confessional, she's like, I'm trying to have a good time at my party. I don't want to talk about Martell. This is a Martell free zone. I don't know why she pulled me to the side to talk about Martell, which I kind of felt like this was really not the place to bring up Martell, because this is really about Melody. This is her moment. But so Nell pulls her to the side, and she tells her that she had a encounter with Martell. Martell came over, and Martell was upset about the Fletchers coming to her name changing ceremony, and Martell was talking a lot of mess about how the Holt name is sacred and how he gave her this name, and she built her empire on this name, and this is the name of their children, and how dare she change her name back. And so Melody was like, she wasn't interested. She was like, whatever, this Rogers was a name that God gave me, or that my mother gave me when I was born, or whatever she said. I don't really give a damn about anything regarding Martell. Martell is not here in, what did she say? He's not here in whatever she said, he's not here in the physical form or in the spirit form or whatever she said. Like, this is completely Martell free, and I don't give a damn about no damn Martell. So after that, she tells Nell, let's go eat. So moving on from there, Stormy. So she's having a meeting with her chief operating officer, and they're talking about how far she's come with Canvas. By the way, they positioned this, the way that they did this scene, they did it in such a way where I don't know what part of the house they were in. It looks like I don't know what part of the house they were in, like a den, living room. I don't know where it was, but there was a picture, a painting of Courtney in the background that was like front and center of this scene. And I'm not understanding why, because the whole time that Stormy was talking to her COO, I could not stop looking at that painting that was there behind her. This painting, this huge painting of Courtney's face. And I'm like, what is this painting for? Like, what's going on here? Is this like, how they used to do in the old days? Like in the, in the medieval, not the medieval days, but like during the time of kings and queens, where families will have their portraits of themselves painted and hung up on the wall. Is this what's going on here? Like, I didn't understand, but I was so distracted by Courtney's big old face in the background on that painting canvas. So they talk about how far her business has come, how she almost lost her business and her home in 2022 at some point. I don't know what was going on. Her business almost went under. People were forging her signature on checks. I guess people were stealing from her. She almost lost it all, but she persevered and she pushed through, and now Canvas is doing extremely well. And her COO tells her that, you're in a position right now where it is very possible for you to be selling like 10 million products a month. So I've been hearing a lot of good things about Canvas. I've been hearing that this is like a real business, number one. It's just not for play for reality TV. This is a real business that she started way before she got on television, and that people are actually real people, real customers are buying her products, and that this is, and that it's doing really well. That's what I've been hearing. So good for her. Moving on from there, we have Nell and Chris. This scene with Nell and Chris and their children. Man, I mean, don't let reality TV ruin your reputation, Nell Fletcher, because I did not know that this woman had it in her to be like this. This scene right here, this dinner scene with her, I was thinking to myself, Carlos King, they need a spinoff. They need their whole own show to deal with these issues, because we don't have the time right now to get into the whole Fletcher family business on Love and Marriage Huntsville. We don't have the time, the room, the space, or the capacity to deal with all of these Fletcher issues. They need their own shows. And yes, I would be tuning in if they did. So it's family dinner night. It's Sunday night. The kids come over. So we find out that when Chris and Nell first met, they each had a child from previous relationships. So Chris Fletcher had a daughter, and Nell had a son. And I think they were both about 1 year old when they first met. They were really small. And so during the course of their marriage, Chris and Nell had two children of their own, Chris Jr. and I forgot the other one's name. And not only that, but Nell also had custody of her niece, Kiki. So this is how it all starts. We find out that Kiki used to work for Nell, and Kiki ended up getting fired by her auntie Nell. Nell fired her. After that, she got another job, and Nell had no idea that she got another job because Kiki never told her. Kiki only told Uncle Daddy Chris, because she calls him Uncle Daddy. So Nell is offended that her own niece did not confide in her that she had gotten another job, and only confided in Uncle Daddy Chris. So in the kitchen, she's asking her niece, why didn't you tell me that you got another job? And her niece, first she asked her, why did you get fired from, she said something like, why didn't you tell me that you got another job? And her niece said, because I don't want to hear your mouth. And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, there's probably a reason why she said that, but I was like, oh my God. This is the woman that raised you. She was like a mother figure to you. How can you tell her, I didn't want to hear your mouth? That was like so disrespectful, but maybe there's a reason why there's all this animosity between them. So then she tells her aunt that, yeah, I got another job, but I got fired from that one, but now I have another job. And so her aunt was like, well, why did you get fired from your job, your other job, your prior job? And she says, because I didn't have childcare. So, whatever. So then they all sit down for dinner. And by the way, Chris's oldest daughter came there with her white boyfriend. Okay. So they're all sitting down at dinner, and it started with, before I even get so much going on, y'all, before I even get there, in their confessional, Chris and Nell were talking about, because Nell said the children, meaning all of them, all 5 kids, they favor Chris over me. And I don't know why. I think we can kind of figure out why by the end of this segment. We knew exactly why. So Chris says, well, maybe because, I'm not so quick to jump the gun like you are. So then they finally all sit down for dinner, and Nell starts in on her niece about why, so why can't you keep a job? And her niece was like, don't go there, Nell, don't go there, because I do keep jobs. You're acting like I've never kept a job before in my life. Circumstances happen, but I do keep jobs. So then she goes to her youngest son, Chris Jr., about why he doesn't call her more often. And Chris Jr. says, because I want my dog back. So evidently, Nell and Chris took care of Chris Jr.'s dog because Chris Jr. ended up getting arrested. And so they took over his dog. They took care of his dog. They had to take him to the vet right away because there was something wrong with the dog. And it cost them like $3,000 of vet bills. Then they had to pay an additional $6,000 to bail their son out of jail. So Nell was like, you're not getting your dog back until you pay us back this money. And so Nell and her son are going back and forth. Next thing you know, Nell is hollering and screaming and yelling at the top of her lungs about, this dog and what her son owes her. And then her daughter jumps in, and her daughter was like, but who? I don't know what the daughter said. The daughter said something. And so Nell turns to her and she was like, shut up, whatever her name was. And I'm just like, oh my God, what is going on with Nell Fletcher? Is she just trying to give us a scene? Is she just trying to show and prove that she's worthy of a reality TV show, that she is worthy to be on? Or is this how she really is? Because Nell, I thought the Fletchers were just so cool, calm, and collected. And I thought that they were just always the voice of reason. They didn't want to get involved in the mess. That, they were always trying to be the mediator, especially between Martell. Because I think that was the first time that I really got to know Nell a little bit, was when Melody and Martell had gone over to the Fletcher's house, and they were sitting on their back patio. And this is where Melody ended up throwing the glass at Martell. And I think this was the first time that I got to really know Nell. And I always had this thing in my mind that she was just as calm and reserved as her husband, Chris. Baby. Her scene with Martell, her scene at Melody's ceremony, her name-changing ceremony, where she was just trying to be messy and gossip about Martell. This scene at their house, y'all, I'm getting a completely different picture of Nell Fletcher. And I'm not going to say that I hate it, okay? Because this is giving some good TV. Chris and Nell need their own reality TV show with their family and these kids so we can figure out what the hell is going on. It was so funny. And the whole time she's yelling and screaming at everybody at the dinner table, her husband, Chris, he's as quiet as a church mouse. I guess he knows better than to interfere. He knows that if he says anything of any sense, she's going to turn her wrath on him. So he just sat there quietly at the head of the table. He didn't say much of anything. And then I noticed that, because, it was a Sunday dinner. So they basically had your typical Sunday dinner food, basically, soul food. They had some mac and cheese, fried chicken. They had some collard greens, I think. I think I saw some candied yams. So I noticed that their oldest daughter's white boyfriend, he ate that soul food up, y'all. His plate was clean. He left no crumbs on that plate. And I was just like, oh, he's having a good old time. He's got himself a good dinner. His belly's full. He's got front rows to a really good show because Nell is flipping out on her son. Man, this scene right here, it made the whole entire episode. Get rid of the Whitlows. Bring on the Fletchers. Better yet, get the Fletchers their own show, Carlos King. I implore you. I am begging you, Carlos King. Give these Fletchers their own show. That is my review. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please don't forget to rate the video. If you like this content, subscribe to my channel, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.